So for those of you that are new to this training, I try and do a training like this about once a month, but I think it has been a couple months since I did it. And I apologize for taking so long to get back to this. The business kind of got real busy and I had to put this on the back burner. So I apologize for the delay, but I'm really excited to have you all here. And what our plan is for today is that we are going to dive into Eric's listing and we're going to look at this, all of us, with fresh eyes. I have not looked at his listing. I have not looked at his Pricelabs. So what we're doing is essentially an evaluation of what would we do if we were pricing Eric's property. So we're going to start with a little bit of listing optimization work, and then we're going to go into the more specific details of what we would do as far as customizations and seasons and all of those kinds of things. And the really cool thing is we get to do it with Eric, who has obviously the background of his property, so he can tell us whether either we're in the right direction or we're not in the right direction. But it should be a really great experiment for us to go through and make changes to his property to hopefully make his pricing program better. So I am logged into his account and we are all good to go there. All right, so what I'm going to do first is share my screen because then you can all see what I'm doing. All right, so you should all be seeing Pricelabs on your screen. Someone confirm they are seeing sharing.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yes, you're good.
I
Awesome.
almost feel like I'm sitting here naked in front of all of you right now.
I told you I would get my hands warm before we did this, okay? Yeah. So very, very, I'm gonna not go there. I won't go there. Anyways, I'm gonna start with a couple quick announcement things here. So for those of you that found this another way, my name is Jake. I have this page called Price Your STR on Facebook. This is a place where we can all post questions, comments. Hey, this is working. This is not working. This is where you will find future trainings. So if you're not a member of the Price Your STR page, please join it. For those of you that are not familiar with me, I'm going to share with you my business real quick, and then we will get rolling here. So Step by Step BNB is my business. Revenue management is my game. And if you are interested in learning more about what we do for folks or how we help them, there is this revenue management page on here, and you can click this button to book a free consultation. We do a 1-hour free consultation for you. We'll go through your pricing program with you. We'll chat about what programs we have to help folks with their revenue management, and we'll spend that individual time with you. So that's all I'm going to say about the business side of this, and we will jump in. So step one of determining a pricing program is looking at the listing. We have to first understand what are we dealing with, right? So this is the one you wanted to do, right, Eric?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So this is Eric's house. I love the color. My property in Gulf Shores is very much the same color. That bright green just brings people in. It's awesome. So let's look at this with fresh eyes and say, is this photo the best first photo to sell this listing? Anyone have an opinion on if they like this photo as the first photo or if they think we should maybe switch it out for something else?
I will not be offended by anything that anyone says, so please feel free to be honest.
Feel free.
Jake, can you flip through the photos so we can see the options?
Well, I first just want your initial reaction. So all of us have looked at plenty of Airbnbs before, okay? And when you're looking at this, is your first impression, wow, I would pick that one over any others or not.
We have a lot of no's so far.
A lot of no's. Okay. All right. So that is exactly what I was looking for. So generally the front of a house, while this house is not unattractive, it's not really selling. It's not doing anything. It's not saying this has special features, right? It's just a house. So what we really want is we want to highlight what are the special features of the property. So for some properties, that's the exterior of the property. So I'll scroll through these photos now for you. I think it was Taryn that was yelling at me.
Mhm.
So sorry, Taryn. I'll do it now. So what I'm seeing is we have a nice inside living space. We have nice bedrooms. We have nice bathrooms. Let's see if we get to the exterior. Okay, here's our exterior photos. So exterior is, we have a golf cart. Do we have a hot tub or a pool, Eric? Say again?
Sorry. It's
It's okay. Do you have a hot tub or a pool? Got to remove his pup.
No, it's just a house with
Okay.
a yard, and it's
Okay.
a few blocks from the beach. So you're seeing what there is to see.
Okay, cool. So here's my suggestion for this listing. You have a number of other spaces that do more for me than this. This kitchen is very nice. That's a very well-designed kitchen. What it tells me about this property is that you care and you want to have a nice place. Okay. So we're seeing design in this kitchen. We're seeing little pops of color. We're seeing a cool chandelier light. So this tells me more about this house than the exterior. Is it the right photo? Not necessarily. I'm just pointing out that there are other things in this property that might be more interesting to people than the front of the house. So anyone have thoughts or suggestions on what they see in these photos?
What's the deal with the photo that has the golf cart in it?
This one, the four or the
Yeah,
the
that
individual?
one. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Did that used to be the cover photo?
you're muted, Eric.
Yeah. I have used this as a cover photo a few times. I've generally used the one of the house head on. I recently just switched it because I felt like it had been the same for a couple of years. And I was like, well, let me just
Mm-hmm.
throw something different in there. So, which I think is like the 8th photo now, is the one that I've primarily used as the main photo, which is head on of the house, kind of.
This one here.
That one right there.
Yeah, I'll be honest, I like that photo better than the one you currently have. This one, we see the power lines. It's not quite as attractive. So I like that photo better. I do also, a couple other ones to consider would be this one from above. I think that's a cool photo because it gives you somewhat of a, layout look, and it gives you a little bit more interesting look at the property. If you were to add a map, so let me ask you a question. What is the primary reason people are coming to your property? Is it for the amenities? Is it for the beach? What are they coming for?
Beach vacation.
Beach vacation. Okay. So if we have people that are looking for a beach vacation, but they don't see anything that shows them where the beach is, they don't know whether this is an attractive place because they're not sure where are you. So one of the
Too
things,
far.
say again,
Too far from the beach.
too far from the beach.
I
Okay.
mean, it's several blocks, but yeah,
Okay.
it's not a selling feature necessarily.
Okay.
Could
So
you do
I have
something with the outdoor space and then get a good photo of that? So pictures 30 and 31 show this great backyard, fully fenced in. I think there's an opportunity to make that a great space and then get a great outdoor photo of it.
I agreed that generally for beach vacations, people are more attracted to an outdoor space because they're thinking about being outdoors during their vacation. So I think what Mark said is a great suggestion, where you could potentially take a photo like this that is fairly plain, maybe add some lawn games, maybe consider doing some string lights, you know, things like that, which would make this much more attractive, and it might set you apart from the 100 of other places that all have the front on listing photo. So there's lots of different ways to skin the cat. There's not one way that you have to go with a primary photo, but I think if we do an experiment right now and we went like this and we said Panama City Beach, Florida, and we just did a search. So your house is going to show up in those first photos because I just looked at it. So it's tagging me as liking that. But if we look at what your competitors are doing, I don't think your house competes that well with these other photos right now. So I would like to see you change that primary photo to something that's more interesting. This is another front on shot. Does that inspire you to click on that property or not?
Not really.
Okay. So I think we made our point. I don't want to spend too much time on listing optimization because I don't want to take too much of our time doing that. I think we're all familiar somewhat with listing optimization. The best way to do listing optimization is A/B testing. So try something for a couple of weeks, test, did I get more reservations? You know, were my clicks more effective? If it was, okay, that was a good change. If it wasn't, then go back to the way that it was. So using a program like Rankbreeze or something like that can be very helpful for something like that. Okay, so this is the property. We know it does not have a hot tub. It does not have a pool. Let's see if we can see where the location is in relation to the beach. Do you have exact location on, or is this the general location?
That is pretty much exact.
Okay, pretty close to exact. Okay,
Yep.
so we know that people are going to have to either walk a fair distance to the beach or drive and park at a public parking area. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's about
Okay.
4/10 of a mile from the front door to the beach access.
Okay, so I mean, people could definitely walk that. The funny thing about most people in the South is 4/10 of a mile is a really long distance to them to walk with beach gear. So I have a property that is similar. I call it 350 yards, but it's probably about the same as what you're saying there. And people are always like, well, can we park next to the beach? I'm like, it's like a super easy walk. Well, we want to bring the chairs, we want to bring the wagon, you know. Okay, all right, so you can drive. It's up to you how you want to do that. You do have the golf cart though, which I think the golf cart is something you really want to highlight in your listing because you're solving that problem, right? So having the golf cart solves the problem of being too far to walk. So if I were you, I would probably incorporate the golf cart a little sooner in your title. And I would also make sure that that golf cart is very prevalent in, if you can incorporate it into your first photo, maybe your backyard with your lawn games and the golf cart parked in there. I think that would be awesome. That would be a highlight for people because they know then transportation is not an issue. Dog friendly is another huge thing. So while you have the important things in your title, I think we could clean up your title a little bit. Personally, I've gone to more of the title based around a format like this, where you use the lines to separate your ideas. It's just a little bit of a cleaner look. So you may want to consider changing it to something like that. I think highlighting those main amenities is important in that title, and it's probably more important for Airbnb than selling your guests, honestly. People are looking at photos more than they are looking at your title. Okay. Jillian, let's go ahead and launch that poll.
You got it.
My lovely assistant, Jillian. We wanted to see for future trainings, what would you like to continue to work on as we go through these trainings? So go ahead and vote. You guys will be able to hopefully see those results as people vote on there. And we're going to dive now into Pricelabs. Okay, so it looks like the polls are coming in. Looks like pretty close race between market dashboard training and length of stay discounts are our top two. So we will try and set up both of those as trainings in the next few months so that we can dive deeper into those particular topics. One of the things that I realize about doing these trainings is we get a lot of questions, and unfortunately we don't get through entire concepts in one session because it's hard to cover all of the topics and also answer questions at the same time. So cool. I am going to move on. If you want to stop sharing those results and we will move along. All right. So for those of you that are not as familiar with what we are looking at, this is a market dashboard. Market dashboard is super, super important when we're talking about building a pricing program because it allows us to compare ourselves to those around us. So instead of us just making blind guesses in the dark or using a what should my base price tool from Pricelabs be, we can actually use some data to gather some information. So, all right. So first thing we have here is Airbnb whole market in the upper left corner. Okay. So we are looking at the entire market, and usually it's about 1,000 listings is what they take as the base of these market dashboards. So you can see we have 871 listings that we are seeing as part of this dashboard. And then it gives us a bunch of statistics here. Interestingly, we are looking at these statistics and a lot of them are negative. So this is important for us to realize for the overall market. Revenue is generally down, and it's down pretty significantly, down $11,000 from the previous 365 days. RevPAR, which is a combination of occupancy and ADR. So if you take occupancy times ADR, you get RevPAR. Revenue per available room. It's a term from hotels, so they use room. You can use whatever you want as part of that mnemonic. Occupancy is down, ADR is down, our booking window is down slightly. Our bookings are actually up. So what does that tell you? What it tells us is there are more listings in this area than there were previously. Because we have more bookings, but everything else is down, it tells us that there are more active listings. And you can see there were 195 less 365 days ago. So that is why we are seeing these decreases. Now, this is not for every bedroom count. Kenny Bedwell always says this, where markets are not saturated, bedroom counts are saturated. I think that's very important to understand, because any specific bedroom count can be optimized, but the whole market is not saturated. There's always an opportunity somewhere in the market. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we're going to pare this down. It's a 3-bedroom, right?
5. I got 5 bedrooms.
5 bedrooms. Pay
Or
more
one
attention,
bathroom.
Jake. Pay more attention. All right.
Okay.
5 bedrooms. Okay. So we are going to look at this market dashboard. I'm doing this first time, same as you guys, because I wanted to look at all of this with fresh eyes. If I had looked at it before, I would have biases, and I wanted us to do this together. So this is the process that we go through when we bring on a new listing as part of our revenue management service. It's also the process that I think is the best way to go about this. Is you want to understand your market first, Then you want to pare down to your number of bedrooms, and then you want to pare down to a comp set. So it's kind of a 3-part process. So now we've changed this whole report to be specific to 5 bedrooms. We've applied the filter. We see that all of these things now have changed. We're still seeing the same trend. Revenue's down, RevPAR is down, occupancy's down, ADR is down. Listings are up. So similar to what we were seeing before. Now, cool thing about this market dashboard, if we ever want to do the enemy method, which is basically looking at properties around us, we can now see all of the 5 bedrooms that are part of this report listed here. Now, in beach markets, there's one thing that we need to be very particular about. If we are not beachfront, we cannot compare ourselves to beachfront properties. If we are beachfront, we cannot compare ourselves to non-beachfront properties because it will greatly skew your data. So very, very important as part of your comp set to try and make sure you are getting an accurate comp set. So the next step of this process that we would do would be creating a comp set. So have you created a comp set, Eric?
Not for this particular property, no.
Okay, cool. So we'll go through this together. This is really good training for everyone to understand how to build a comp set. So it's also important for us to realize that when we make a change over here, it does not affect this section, this comp set section. So a lot of times when I'm doing trainings with people, they say, well, why does it say studio when we just changed it to 5 bedrooms? These are 2 pieces that are separate of each other. So just be aware of that. I didn't go over this at the beginning, but if anyone has specific questions, feel free to raise your hand and Jillian will go ahead and call on you and we can try and go through questions as we're doing this process. So the first thing that I like to do is I like to make sure I have all of the columns visible on here that I'm interested in. There's a couple cool new ones that they just added, cancellation policy and radius. So those of you that have properties that are a little more spread out, radius may be important to you so that you can say, I only want properties within, say, 1 mile of my property. So the ones I always check are estimated revenue and estimated occupancy, because I always want to see what am I in comparison to? What does the revenue look like? What does the occupancy look like? The things that drive a lot of revenue at properties are things that I want to make sure that I check. So even though Eric does not have a pool, we need to check pool because we can't compare ourselves to places with a pool. It's too big of a disparity. Hot tub is another one that drives revenue, probably doesn't drive as much revenue in this market as it would in some other markets. Beachfront is going to drive huge amounts of revenue, and pets are going to drive a lot of revenue. So those are probably the main ones that I would consider. The other ones that you could think about is max guests. So if you have say a 5-bedroom property, most 5-bedroom properties probably sleep somewhere in the 10 to 14 people range. If you have a 5-bedroom property that sleeps 8, you may be better off using max guests because you're comparing against places that could be 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, as opposed to just 5-bedroom properties. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. All right, so now that we have all of these columns in place, I'm going to just scroll over so we can see the results of all of these columns. Now we're going to start our sorting process. Okay, so for Eric's property, I'm going to type in a 5 and enter. Okay, so now we're looking just at the 5-bedroom properties. The other things that we want to sort are stars, number of reviews, and potentially estimated active nights. So those are things that we want to enter something in these columns. So I don't want to look at properties that have really bad reviews because that's not who we want to compare against. So I might say I only want 4.6 and higher. We're already down to 2 pages. So this is already going to be a very small comp set. So one thing that we want to realize is if we get down to 15, 10, 5 properties that are comps, we need to look at a broader search as well as our comp set, because it's too small of a number and your numbers can get skewed too easily. Does that make sense to everybody? Awesome. Awesome. Love it. Okay. Number of reviews. So we see here that this place has 5 reviews. This place has 5 reviews. We generally don't want to compare against places that only have a few reviews, because those places are probably priced a little low because they're new properties. So we're going to say we want to see more than 10 reviews. The other thing we can do is active nights. So all of these are over, well, that one's under 300, but they're all over 250 nights. So these all appear to be fairly full-time rentals. If I see ones that are in the hundreds or low 200s, oftentimes I will try and filter those out because I want to make sure that we're getting a good comp set. So the other thing we talked about is filtering out the beachfront, right? So we want to go to no beachfront. So we are already down to less than 10 listings. So this creates a hard situation for us where we want to have a larger comp set, but we also need accurate numbers, right? So if we compare ourselves against places that are beachfront, our numbers are not going to be accurate. So this is where we have to start making tough decisions. So if I start going down this and I say, okay, no hot tub, yes pets, no pool, we're left with one listing, and that doesn't give us very much information. So I need to start making some choices on what is most important, what is driving the most revenue. So hot tub, I don't think is going to make a huge difference. So we're going to add hot tub back in. I'm going to take pets allowed off. Even though that's a big revenue driver, I think it's going to put us in a position where we're getting too, too specific. Now, pool is probably a big one, and ideally I would like to have no pool, but for a second, I'm going to look at the whole thing first. Okay. So we still only have 6 listings here, right? Sorry, I didn't mean to do yes. I meant to do nothing. Okay. So
I
we're
would-
seeing
I
yes
would
and
question
no.
the accuracy of the beachfront filter that Pricelabs is using, because I did see my listing here in this comp set, but when you selected no beachfront, my listing disappeared, but it's not beachfront. Or do I
Interesting.
have it marked as such? So I don't know where that's coming from.
Okay, let's take that off and see.
So you can see mine is 1, 2, 3, 4th one down. Right there it is.
This one. Let's see if the amenities say you are beachfront. Shared beach access must be what they potentially are saying.
Yeah, beach access. I don't even, that's a little unclear what that even exactly means.
It's very, very unclear that would make you beachfront. Location features, shared beach access. Guests can enjoy a nearby beach.
That is a true statement.
That's very interesting that is how Pricelabs is pulling that in. So this brings us to another very important point here. So anytime we create a comp set, you cannot just use these filters and assume they are correct. You have to look at every single listing that's part of your comp set and actually make sure it is a comp for your property. So the process that we go through is the same that we just went through, where we filter it down to the listings that we're looking for. And we try and create the best comp set that we can. We can't always create a great comp set because sometimes it's hard to find good comps. So we have a couple of choices at this point. One, we could pay for more listings from Pricelabs. So Pricelabs, as a default for $10 a month, you get 1,000 listings as part of this report. One thing you could do is you could go to Pricelabs in your market dashboard here, and you could edit your radius and you can change your plan to be 5,000 listings. 5,000 listings cost $20 a month. So it may be worthwhile in the sense that it's hard to find non-beachfront, no pool, no hot tub. If we add 5,000 listings, maybe we can find it. The other thing you can consider is changing some of the other variables. So maybe instead of being a hard line on 5 bedrooms, maybe we use that max guest count instead, and that maybe opens things up a little more. So I'm not going to go through this entire process because I feel like we're already losing so much time getting through this. But let me just go into one of the details that I want you to make sure of is whatever you find as part of your comp set as doing this process, you then need to click on Airbnb and you need to confirm this is a good comp. If there's anything that's off about the property, whether they have a blocked calendar, you know, 6 months of the next 6 months of their calendar is blocked, that's not something you want as part of your comp set because it's not going to give you good data. If you're trying to make sure your comp set does not have a pool or is not beachfront, and you see that it is beachfront or has a pool, you need to remove that from your comp set. Otherwise, it's not a good comp set. So what we do here, once we find all of the listings that we want, is then we check the boxes here to create our comp set. So sometimes this takes a lot of playing around. So I'll be honest, sometimes we try this and we say, man, we only got 3 listings that's really true comps. So sometimes what I do is I create a couple different comp sets. I create one that is as much the true comp set as possible, where it would be no pool, no hot tub, yes pets, non-beachfront. That's one comp set. Okay. Maybe it only has 3 listings, but that's the most true comp set that I can come up with. Then I come up with a broader comp set that is, okay, maybe I add in pool, maybe I add in hot tub, maybe I, take out pets. And that gives me 10, 12, 15 listings. That's my next level of comp set. And then my final level of comp set is going to all 5 bedroom properties in the area. Okay. And that gives me 39 listings. So what that allows me to do is see on a broader scale, what does it look like for the specific property that's very similar to me? What does it look like for a little broader? And then what does it look like for the whole group of 5 bedrooms? So just understand that there's not always a perfect comp set. And sometimes you have to do this extra work to get yourself real decent data to use.
So Hiba has a question.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Ask the question.
Oh, what's the minimum number of listings you want to see in a comp set?
So it's complicated because often we can't find the right number of listings. So in this case, I would say you have to make a couple of different comp sets. Ideally, I would like 25 to 30 listings to have a decent amount of statistical validation to the comp set. There was a guy who posted in the group earlier today that said something about he likes to have 15 listings as his comp set. And he said, if it's more than that, then it's not a good comp set. I totally disagree with that because the example that I gave was, what if your average price is $100 a night? And one of those listings of the 15 blocks their calendar and they change their price to, or they don't block their calendar. They just change their price to $1,000 a night. So now instead of having 15 listings each at $100 a night, which would be $1,500 total for one night, we now have one listing at $1,000 a night and 14 listings at $100 a night. So now we're at $2,400. Okay, because of one listing making a dumb change. So now instead of me thinking my average ADR is $100, the average ADR is now $160 for those listings. It totally skews the data. it's no longer relevant data at that point. So the bigger your comp set, the more statistical relevance you have, because those anomalies will be basically filtered out by having a big enough number where it doesn't affect your numbers very much. So there's no perfect way to do this, but we have to do the best we can. And that's the number. If you ask Pricelabs, they recommend 25 to 30. And I think based on my analysis, I think that I feel that way as well.
Melissa asked a question, why are so many listings missing in the Pricelabs comp sets? How does Pricelabs decide what listings to include? I find many missing in my own neighborhood.
I don't have a great answer for you there, unfortunately. All of this data is scraped data, and Pricelabs and all of the other pricing programs, with the exception of something like Key Data, which takes it directly from a PMS, they all have algorithms that try and filter out bad data. So what that does is it ends up taking out some good data at the same time, because they see like all of a sudden a whole month gets blocked off, and they see that as this is bad data. Well, it could have just been a month-long reservation. So Pricelabs and all the other pricing softwares are doing their best to get us the best data possible, but that is why we should always validate the data by multiple sources. So when you're doing deep pricing analysis, the best case scenario is to use lots of listings, and then also validate by using other sources like AirDNA or Key Data if you have access to it, or things like that. So what we're doing is we're trying to get enough data to make good, smart decisions. One thing that comes out of this is you realize there is no way to be 100% accurate with the data that we are provided. So we always have to test things, try things, and then change. There's no perfect situation. Hopefully that answers your question. So I just want to finish up this market dashboard section. So we click on all of these here, and you can see then it says generate comp set, and we now have a 5 here. So we can enter a name in here and name that comp set, and then generate the comp set, and that becomes our comp set. Once you do that, I'll just do this as an example. Eric, just remember to delete this. Example 5 properties. So we go ahead and we generate the comp set. Now it shows up as an option in here. So the cool thing is once you create that comp set, now you can sort your entire report that way. So once you do that, you click example 5 properties and you can apply that filter. So now if we scroll up, you'll see the active listings turn into 5. We get the data just for those 5 listings, and the whole report is now specific to that grouping. So we see everything changes. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our whole market, our 5 bedrooms. So whenever I'm looking at market data stuff to try and design a pricing program, I want to look at the bedroom count. The reason for that is bedroom counts behave very differently. If you look at a 1-bedroom property versus a 5-bedroom property, the median booking window could be 50% or 100% different depending on what you're looking at. So we love these 4 graphs here because they tell us very specifically when our seasons are. Okay, so we feel like creating seasons for our properties is one of the best ways to set ourselves apart from everybody else. So if I just said, what are the 2 high season months, looking at this graph, you can see across the board, it's the same, right? June and July. We can see very clearly. Now, if I said, what are your mid seasons? We can see August, September, October on one side, and May, April, and March on the other side. And then we can see we have our low season is November, December, January, February. This is a very typical beach market. That's what we see pretty much across the board for the whole Gulf Coast. because these are the things that affect us, and it's mostly seasonal based on the weather. So what do we do with that? We go to our dynamic pricing. I apologize, Eric. I feel like we're not getting that far on this. So curvy palm. And we look at this. This is your main one, right?
Yep,
Okay, cool.
this is the only one for this property.
Okay, it was the other one that you said you had a smaller version of. Okay, so what we would do now is design a seasonal profile. Okay, so what we see here is Eric has started to design a seasonal profile, but it looks like he just put in certain periods of time. Eric, are you comfortable with me editing?
Yeah, you can do whatever you want to this. I did this about a year and a half ago when my level of knowledge was minuscule.
Okay.
Still could be minuscule, but not as minuscule.
Not as minuscule. That's, it's always good to be getting better, right? Getting better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some additional seasons in here. And some people may feel like this gets overkill. I like to do it this way. So the first thing I'm going to do is put in my season. So winter, and then I'm going to say whether it's high, mid, or low. So for me, this is a low season. And we're going to do this from January 1st through, when would you feel like your season starts to pick up, Eric?
Getting closer to the middle of March. Early March is still pretty quiet. It's, when spring breaks start to kick in.
Right.
So at least a third of the way through March.
Okay, cool. I'm going to do one more tab here. What you will realize is if you get into doing revenue management, you need like 7 screens to be able to look at everything at the same time. So I just created another screen here for me to look at something while I'm editing that. So one thing that I love using is this neighborhood data tab when I'm creating seasons, because the data on the market dashboard is just by month, right? But we don't know when those actual breaks happen. Is it March 7th or is it March 15th? Or, where should we see those breaks? So what we can do is we can look at last year's data. Sorry, I should have made this a year. So what we're currently looking at is 4 to 6 bedrooms. And what Eric has this set up as is just the nearby listings. So cool thing that they implemented recently on here is that you can actually select a market dashboard and you can use your PCB West, and then you can choose by bedroom count, or you can choose that comp set that you created. So why don't we use 5 bedrooms as our example here. So we're using those comp sets. So this is all 5 bedrooms. Now, what we can see immediately is that Eric is trending significantly below the overall market of 5 bedrooms. And the reason for that is he's not beachfront, doesn't have a pool, doesn't have a hot tub. So these are things that we have to realize. If he's trending below, you don't want to start pricing yourself up in this section because like the base price tool said I should. You need to realize, where is my property in relation to the other properties around you? How does it compare? So sorry, I'm getting sidetracked, obviously. So one of the things that we can use as a tool here is this last year's data. Okay. So last year's data, we can see pretty clearly. Here's January. So our market occupancy is this dotted gray line. Okay. So this is what market occupancy was this year, at the beginning of this year. We can see that we're still only at 22% on March 1st, but we can see a pretty big jump March 7th. Looks like there's a big jump there in occupancy. So that would be where I would start my mid-season, because we can see it changes from low occupancy very significantly to larger occupancy, right? So that's where I'm going to set that season. So I go here and I say, okay, January 1st through March. So March 7th is going to be Friday. So I usually do March 6th. Do you prefer to use this as a fixed price, or do you like the idea of doing percentages, Eric?
I generally work on percentages myself.
Okay, I like to do percentages too. My brain works better with like easy round numbers like 5%, 10% instead of trying to remember that it should be 874 or something like that. So the other thing you might want to do is click this add base price. So you notice that just added another column here. So this additional column now allows us to change our base price up or down. So one of the strategies we use is we try and place ourselves in a different percentile during different seasons. So as an example, if you rent your property and you're normally at the 50th percentile, during high season, you may be able to push your price a little higher than that, more like 55th, 60th, 65th percentile, because you know that there's going to be very high occupancy. Now, during low season, when there's lots of availability, there's very low occupancy, you may want to push yourself down to the 25th percentile to be more attractive to people, because now your 50th percentile property is being compared with 25th percentile properties. They're all priced the same, but yours is better. So it's going to book more every single time. So what we would do would be make an adjustment to the base price. So for this, I might say, okay, I want to go down 10%. I know that period of time is going to be very, very slow. That's the market in these beach markets. It's very slow. So let me be as competitive as possible and bring my base price down. Okay, so then the next one we're going to go to is spring mid. Okay, so we're going to go to March 7th. So we always want to try and not leave any gaps here because we want to try and cover the whole year. So then what we can do is we can go back to that neighborhood data page and we can see, okay, from March 7th through April 5th looks like is kind of a higher time. Okay. And then if we look at mid-April, gets pretty low. And we can kind of see it continue across here. Whoa. Who is that? Oh, it's the pup. So we can see it kind of continue across here, and you can make a determination on whether you want this to continue to be mid-season, or maybe you want a separate season here. Maybe this is a spring break high season, and then you go to a mid-season here, and then you go back to high season. Looks like Memorial Day is when we go back to a high season. So what I like to do is kind of just go across this chart, and I can plot pretty easily where I should have my highs, my mids, my lows, and where there's cutoffs. So another one that's we need to be very aware of is when kids go back to school, generally you will see a big drop off again. So August, we see that drop off here. So starting August 11th, we go from, 60+% occupancy here to between 20 and 40% occupancy for the rest of August. Then we have a little bit increase for September again. So most people don't travel the first couple of weeks of school. It just makes life hard. For a 5-bedroom property, you're generally targeting people with kids. So it just makes sense. So we'll build out the rest of this seasonal profile in that way. So Eric, what do you think? Do you want to have more of a high season like through beginning of April, or do you want to go and just keep it all a mid-season through Memorial Day?
I think splitting it up makes more sense because there's definitely a significant difference in the market in March.
That's
compared
definitely
to
what I would do as well. So
April through early May, mid-May, it's pretty quiet.
Right. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end it after this weekend. So April 7th is going to be, this is kind of like a mini high season. And I think I'm going to name this Spring High, just so I recognize that. And we'll bring the base price up a little bit. It's not going to be the same as your high season in summer, but you can still probably push your price a little bit there. So then we'll go to our next season, which will be Spring Mid. Spring Mid. And you guys can name these, obviously, whatever makes the most sense to you. So we'll then do April 8th through Memorial Day. I usually do a cutoff of the 22nd. And this, so my mids, I generally don't apply a base price change to my mids. So that's kind of like my normal level is my mid. And then we're going to go into our high season. We're going to go to summer high. Does everyone want me to continue this whole profile, or should we move on to something else and try and cover a little more and let Eric finish this out?
Someone said move on. Move on.
Yep, we had one vote for move on.
My vote was to continue, but that was selfish of me. So
Eric, why don't we set up a call where I'll help you finish this out, because
yeah, I think I get the gist.
Okay, but I feel bad that we were hoping to get through a lot more today than we are. So for August, when kids go back to school, you have to look at kind of where does that last weekend end before school, and that's usually the end of that high season. So I think probably the 11th would be the end. So for this section, we might go up 10%. And remember, when you're altering your base price, you're altering it more than Pricelabs is already doing it, right? So Pricelabs already makes an adjustment for summer. So what you're doing is you're saying, even though I'm a 50th percentile property, I'm confident that I can compete with the 60th, 65th percentile property during summer because there's high occupancy and there's limited number of supply of 5-bedroom houses. So you're confident with that. Okay. So the next thing I want to look at is a minimum stay profile. Jillian, I didn't get the rest of the polls in, so don't worry about the polls.
Okay.
My day got busy. Sorry, guys. I didn't get as much info in here as I wanted to. But let's go ahead and create a minimum stay profile, because this is another super important component of building a great pricing program. Okay, so we're going to create a profile and we're going to go through this whole process here. All right, so we're going to do, you want to do high season or low season?
let's go high. That's where the money is.
PCB high season. Okay. So when we're looking at our high season, I hate the way this is set up. I'm going to apologize for Pricelabs in advance because it does not make sense to my brain. So I have to do this kind of backwards. Okay. So I have to start with far out bookings because furthest out, and then I work my way in. That's what makes sense to my brain. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our market dashboard here, and we're going to look at our median booking window. Okay. So during our high period of time, our median booking window is 80. And we can see this 80 is during June, 42 for July. That's a fairly big discrepancy. We can see in years past, we were at 66 for June. So we have to kind of make our best guess at what is our true booking window. And you can adjust this by season, which I think is a great strategy to use, is you can adjust your minimum night rules by season. So what we're going to do is we're going to build a high season profile and a low season profile, and you can do a mid-season profile as well if you like. But what I'm going to look at is I'm going to say, okay, probably my median booking window for summer is going to be somewhere in the 60-ish days, because we're taking kind of an average of 40, 80, 42, 73, 39. Let's average it at 60 and say that's approximately our booking window. Now, the other thing we want to look at here is our median length of stay. Okay, so it looks like the average length of stay is 4. for this property. Now, it's not 4 across the board, okay? What is more likely is that some people book week-long stays and some people book 3-day stays. And then there's a middle ground where people book in between that. So if we want additional information on something like that, we can look at a graph like this. And okay, so we're seeing the largest period here where we can see when are people booking different lengths of stays, right? So what we can see from this is this graph, 29 plus days is this dark gray. There's not very many 29 plus day stays. There's no 29 day plus stays. There are some 15 to 28 day stays. And then you see there's actually quite a bit of 7 to 14 days. That's the lighter gray. And then you can see 5 to 6 days is a pretty large component as well. And then you see the 3 to 4, the 2-day, the 1-day are less. So if we look at a graph like this, what we really want to target is the vast majority of stays, which are going to be a week to 5 days is probably your main market, at least during your high season. Now, during low season, we're going to have a different set of rules. So we're not so worried about that at this moment. You can also look down here, and this gives you a different graphical representation of this, where you can see we have 152 nights booked for 5 to 6 days. We have 103 nights booked for 7 to 14 days. This is just for the last 30 days. The reason I don't love this graph as much is because you can only filter it to up to 30 days, which doesn't give you the whole picture of the whole year. So I kind of like looking at that other graph a little bit better. And then you can also see the distribution of when do those bookings come in. So some bookings come in 6 months plus, but not very many. And then you start to see kind of your bell curve up in that 4 to 6 months. And then your peak is 2 to 4 months, and then it curves back down, right? So we're using all of this data to create minimum stay rules. So like I said, I have to start with far out bookings. Okay, so for a 5-bedroom property in a beach market where I know people book fairly far ahead for beach stays, and PCB is still kind of a traditional beach market where people used to always book Saturday to Saturday 7-night stays. So I'm going to start thinking about it from the position of a 7-night minimum and looking at our main distribution of high season of an average of 60 days is our booking window. I probably don't want to have that 7-night restriction within those 60 days. I want to have it further out than that. Okay. So what do you think? Do you see bookings come in 90 days out, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, for summer, there's a few, but
Okay.
you
Okay.
know, it's been
So let's-
trending, shorter and shorter these days. But
Sure. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to influence people, even though they're booking, the trends are to book shorter stays, is we're going to influence them to book longer stays further out. We're not going to allow them to book a 3-night stay 90 days out, because that then takes away the potential for us to take a week-long stay during that time. And we probably are going to end up with gaps if we take 3-night stays. So we're going to hold a 7-night that far out. And then what we could drop down to is either a 5-5 or a 3-4. What would be your preference, Eric?
I would probably 5.
5-5? Okay.
Okay.
5-5. So 5-5, maybe we drop to at 60 days. Okay. Now we're letting people book a little bit shorter stays. And then as we get closer in, this is something interesting that I've been starting to experiment a little with is using a booking value instead of a fixed minimum nights. So this is something to consider. So I'll give you an example. I have a 5-bedroom property in Gulf Shores, and I really don't want to take a booking of like $1,000 or less. But during different seasons, that could be 2 nights or it could be 5 nights. So if you want to just focus on the dollar amount, Pricelabs will dynamically change your number of nights based on your price if you set a certain limit. So something to think about, it could be an option. I mostly have not been doing this for clients. It's just something I've been experimenting with my properties. But so now we're going to drop down to a 3-4. And then we're going to add our last minute bookings from there. Okay. So we saw that the normal booking that most people make is a 4 night. And we said our median booking window was about 60 days. So I'm comfortable having them restricted to this 3-4 at 60 days. So now we're going to be inside of that. You don't allow 1-night stays, correct?
No, I mean, I've put a few on the calendar kind of randomly at slow times just to
Okay.
potentially help in search results. I don't know if it does, but
Sure.
for the most
Okay.
part, I don't.
So then we're going to drop from a 3-4 to a 2-3. So 2 midweek, 3 weekend within, what do you want to do? 15 days?
Yeah, I
20
was
days?
thinking around 20, but 15 could work too.
Let's do 20 days. I think that's a better fit. And then we can drop to a 2-2. Oops, 2-2. So usually I try to only allow a 2-night stay on the weekend when I'm like really getting desperate, because I'm hoping that during my high season, I'm booking at least 3 nights on the weekends. So 7 nights, is that comfortable? Or do you see your booking window, because it's a 5-bedroom, people are not going to book within 7 nights?
I don't get a ton of bookings within 7 nights, but
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
fine putting
So
that.
I would then, if that's true, maybe we go to a 14 here and we push this a little further out to 30. I may even adjust this a little further out to more like 75 and this at 105. It just makes me a little uncomfortable that our normal booking window, which is 60 days, we're kind of encroaching on that now with our 5-night minimum. Our normal booking should be a 3 and a 4-night stay. So I'm more comfortable having that during our normal booking period around 60 days. How does this look? Does that look okay for you?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
Okay. Anyone have questions around the minimum night stay rules and how you do this? So the last part of this is adding in orphans. Okay. So the really cool thing about what they just added in is this length of gap terminology. So instead of me having to put in, I used to put in here 1, 1 for gaps between 1 and 1. And then I would put in 2, 2 for gaps between 2 and 2. And it took me half an afternoon to do this because I had to enter every number. But now what I can do is I can just say length of gap and length of gap for between 2 and 7. So the reason we chose 2 and 7, 2 is our shortest booking window. So we don't want to allow 1-night stays. And 7 is our longest booking window. So if we have a gap anywhere between 2 and 7, we want it to automatically drop to whatever that gap is. So that's how I would finish this out. You can also do this just within a certain period of time if you want to. So if you want to try and get longer stays or something like that and not drop to your gap length, you can do it within a period of time. My philosophy is as soon as I have a gap, I want to try and fill that gap. Whatever it is, let's get it filled. I don't want to wait around for that. So Was there a question that we wanted to answer?
Yes, one quick question from Heba, I think is how you say his name. Do you ever raise prices and incentivize longer stays with discounts on Airbnb?
Absolutely. One of my key drivers for our business is doing that. So most of my properties, what I try and do is I base it on the data. Okay. So I look at a statistic like this, and generally what I'm trying to do is push people to do a little more than what they're already doing. So if I see most people are booking 4 nights, I might offer a discount for 5-night stays. So Airbnb right now, you only get the slash through your price if you do more than 10% discount. So generally I'll do a 10% discount for what, something around this, but hopefully one more is what I'm looking for. So the better way to look at this may be this graph here, where we're looking at where do people actually book number of nights, and I'm trying to get them to book that one more than hopefully they normally would. So in this case, I might put in a 10% discount for 5-night stays. Then I would also offer maybe a 15% discount for week-long stays. I know weeks get booked a lot in PCB, and I want to target those because then I have less gaps, especially in my high season. Now, the way I combat this is most of the time I'm adding something to my normal price. So if I was doing this for Eric and he's not currently offering any discounts, we would try and build in a little bit of an increase to both his minimum nights. Okay, I'm going to save this profile. Okay, so you can see that we applied the PCB high season. Obviously, that one should not be applied to winter low. So I'm going to go ahead and apply it here to high season. I'm going to finish this profile, even though it's not done. Ensure that your date you are trying to get does not overlap. Did I overlap something?
May have been one of mine that I already had there. Maybe not.
It may just be that I have these empties on here and it doesn't like that. So let's go like this. We'll save our work so that Eric can go back and finish this off. So the point I was making was that if we're looking at Eric's current base price of $255 and we're saying, okay, normally we're at $255, but we're going to offer a 10% discount, and he's not already doing that, we can now work on increasing his price by approximately 10% to offset that. Because really what we're doing is we want the psychological benefit of people buying on sale, but we don't necessarily actually want to give them a lower price because that's what we want them to book. So you have to balance all of this out and you have to test all of it and see what works and what doesn't. You may also want to consider increasing your minimum price as well. Now, the cool thing about a seasonal profile is you can do all of that here. So by season, say I wanted to increase my minimum price just during high season, I can add an additional 10% here. So maybe you're targeting those longer stays just during your high season. That's when it's going to come in. You can increase things just during that season and keep your low prices and try and get your bookings during the low seasons. I think Taryn has a question as well.
Yeah, Taryn, do you want to unmute and ask?
Yeah. So I got this question from watching a video off of Airbnb Automated or whatever it is. Sean, you guys know who I'm talking about. So he does this strategy. He does this strategy where I think it's especially if you're you're approaching maybe a weekend that's still unbooked, and he actually encourages you to increase it, not lower it, because you might end up being like the only option left, and then the guest is kind of, forced in a sense to book with you at a premium.
Yeah,
What are
so
your
yeah, there's a pretty easy way to determine what that situation looks like. So if we look at a graph like this and we go down here and we say add last year's data, what we are currently looking at is all 5 bedrooms in this market. So if we look at this graph, say we're coming up to a weekend, say we're coming up to this weekend here, which looks like it's probably the most booked weekend of the year. So last year's occupancy, that's July 4th weekend. So last year's occupancy for July 4th was 95.7%. So if you're coming up to that weekend, you know, a week, 2 weeks before, and you're like, everybody's booked, I'm literally the only one left, and you can do some quick math. If there's, I think it said there was 55 listings in this comp set. So if there's 55 listings in this comp set and you're the only one left, you could say, sure, I'm going to jack my price up and try and get booked. I'm not that ballsy most of the time, to be 100% honest with you. Is if I get to within a week or two and my property is not booked, I'm thinking more about the downside of it's 4th of July weekend. I should be getting $500 a night for 3-4 nights. So if I don't get booked, I'm giving up $2,000 by not getting booked. If I jack my prices, I'm going to get $2,500. I add $100 a night or something like that. To me, it's just not worth it, to the risk of not getting booked. Now, if I looked at a graph and it was like 90 to 100% for the whole next 2 months, I'd feel a lot more confident about myself in that situation, saying, you know, I just launched a new listing. It's really nice. I think everybody's booked already. If you look at lake markets, like in the Pocono, you know, or upstate New York, places like that, they book super far ahead. So if you have a lakefront property in those areas and you launch it late in the year, I'd be pretty confident charging a high price for something like that. But looking at something like this, like the best weekends are, you know, 95, 91%. It's still not 100%. I don't want to be the one left out and give up $2,000 because I was trying to push for an extra $100,000 a night, or $100 a night.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think it's, you know, to say that that strategy works all the time. I mean, it's got to be so market and time dependent. You
Yeah.
know, we're looking at my Florida beach house, but my cabin outside of Blue Ridge, which I don't know if anyone has heard anything about the Blue Ridge market, but you know, there's a lot of listings there these days. And so, you know, when I have a weekend coming up that's unbooked, if I raise the price, no one will ever find me. I do the exact opposite. I lower the price. I can find myself on page one, and oftentimes I get booked last minute. But if I raise my price there, I mean, forget it. No one's ever booking me.
And I think the other thing to think about is how big is your property. So Sean, his main portfolio is small units that are very interchangeable. They're 1 bedrooms, they're 2 bedrooms, they're in, you know, metropolitan areas where there's hundreds of listings that are similar. And a 1 bedroom will book the day before. A 5 bedroom very rarely books the day before, even during your peak season. People just aren't looking to bring 14 people on a whim to the beach. So I think you have to consider the context of it as well. If you have a 1 bedroom condo and your booking window for that can be pretty short, then yeah, I think you have more potential to raise your price. And what you can do is you could test it. Like, say you're 2 weeks out, raise your price for a week, see if it books because you're the last one. If it doesn't, you can always lower it down and still get booked within the last week. I probably wouldn't play that game with a 5 bedroom house. When I get within 2 weeks, I'm just like, I got to get this booked because otherwise it's not going to get booked the couple days before.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think what I'm
Sheila
going to,
had a, oh, sorry, Jake.
Yeah, go
Sheila
ahead.
had just a really quick question. Do you worry that having longer minimum stays far out hurts your rankings?
I don't. It does affect my rankings. I don't always show up on the first page, but I have a mix of certain things that I'm looking for. So what I'm looking for is to create as few gaps as possible during certain times of the year. So high season, when I expect to get some week-long bookings, I'm okay not showing up for everyone. I only want to show up for people who want to book a week or more. And I'm going to offer them a discount for booking that week or more far out. So it does affect your rankings, but it's a strategy. It's a strategy where I'm trying to prevent having large holes in my calendar, because what happens is if you drop to a 2 or a 3 night minimum during your high season, people aren't going to book midweek. They're going to book the weekend, which is the most attractive time. Now you're going to be struggling to fill 2, 3, 4 days in the middle of every single week. And the revenue that I'm going to give up for those 3, 4 days in the middle of the week, week after week, is way more than the revenue I'm giving up by offering a little bit of a discount for people to book that week-long stay. So it's a strategy that I only use during high season. During low season, I'm happy to get that 2 night, that 3 night booking, because I just want to have some bookings on my calendar, but I don't want to cannibalize what could be a very long stay with a 2 or a 3 night booking on my most premium days of the week, if that makes sense.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to take just 1 or 2 more questions. I have another call I have to hop on at 2:30. So I apologize. I planned my schedule poorly today. I had a call right before and a call right after. For future trainings, I will make sure I give myself a little more time, and we will try and figure out ways to kind of target very specific pieces of this one at a time, because I'm just realizing when we say, let's do the whole thing, it's just too much to cover. So Eric, I'll reach out to you. Why don't you do whatever you learned from this, and then let's schedule a time to get together and look over it, and I'll help you kind of dial it in.
Cool.
Thank you for being our guinea pig. It takes a lot of guts to stand up in front of everybody and show
pleasure.
your wares.
If anyone wants to go stay in PCB, let me know. I'll give you a good deal. Discount 7 days or more.
There you go. There you go.
Sheila, you interested? I know you need a place to stay in Panama City Beach.
Anyone have another quick question before we hop off?
Karen had a really quick one. How or where do you offer the discount for a week in Pricelabs or Airbnb directly? If you do it in Pricelabs, will it show the slash through price in Airbnb, and how does that show in Vrbo?
Okay.
Sorry.
No. It's all good. So the options that you have in Pricelabs, you can offer a, let's see if I remember where it is. Do you remember where that is, Tillian? We never use it.
Go. Isn't it under advanced customizations?
They just move it?
Seasonal profile?
Or I thought it was too. Weird. Maybe they took it away.
I do it in Airbnb, thinking that if I add discounts and promotions there, that they'll, bump me up a little bit.
Correct. Yeah, we do as well. So I was trying to show the example of where you can put it into Pricelabs. There is a weekly and a monthly adjustment that you can make within Pricelabs, but it adjusts your price within Pricelabs. It does not adjust your price within Airbnb, so it shows up as if you didn't put a discount. So the way we do it is on Airbnb. If we look, see if I can find a week. So if we look, for example, at this, you can see that there's that slash through the price and you see this weekly stay discount. That happens when you put it in natively in Airbnb. So in this listing, you go to pricing and availability, you click on calendar, and you can see we have that weekly discount here. And then you can add other length of stay discounts under this trip length discount. So for this one, we do 10% off for a 4-night stay for this property. But those are native in Airbnb. Now, if you have a program like OwnerRez, Hostfully, Guesty, any of those that are tied API connected to Airbnb, you can apply those within that program and send it out, and it will still show up the same way as if you entered it natively here. If you have a program like Hospitable that's not API connected, it doesn't override this section, so it'll show up similar to what it does if you do it in Pricelabs. So it's not showing up natively, and what you want is for it to show up natively so you get that slash through the price. As far as Vrbo does not have a like slash through the price type of a situation unless they've changed it very recently. What they do is they have a checkbox that you can check as part of your search that says something like weekly discount or monthly discount or something like that. I honestly can't remember exactly what the terminology is, but it's such a small tweak and like far off for people to find that I feel like it almost makes no difference at all. So I do apply them across the board. Like if I'm doing this within OwnerRez, I will apply the 10% discount to Airbnb, to VRBO, and to my direct booking website, but it doesn't show up the same way in VRBO. So it really just shows up as a lower price. Hopefully that answers the question. I apologize, everyone. I have to hop off and get on another call. It was a pleasure getting to spend an hour and a half with you. We will definitely do more of these and dive deeper into this as we go along. So thanks again. Have a good day.